Who's hosting the Lombardi Trophy in 2026? Will it be the Eagles again, or will it be a dark horse ready to strike the league? Stick around with my bold 2025-2026 season predictions. Welcome everyone to the channel. My name is Dash, and I'm going to be sharing you guys my NFL 2025-2026 season prediction, obviously by the title. But I'm not going to go into deep dive of why I think this team is going to beat this team, etc., etc. I'm just going to simply show you guys my predictions for each team in alphabetical order. So starting with the Arizona Cardinals all the way to the Washington Commanders. But I'm going to show you guys my predictions for each team. I'm going to show you my high for them, my low for them, and then later afterwards I'm going to show you my playoff predictions at the end, and we'll see how it goes from there. Also, please make sure to subscribe, like, and comment below which team you think is going to win the Super Bowl and which team do you think is going to go what record.
Also, a disclaimer that this is a prediction. I'm obviously going to be wrong. Please do not take this literally or seriously. The whole point of the prediction is to have a conversation.
But let's get started. So starting off with the Arizona Cardinals, I have them going 8-9. Their conference ranking is to be 10. And let's go week by week. So week 1, they beat against the Saints. Week 2, they beat the Panthers. Week 3, they lose to the 49ers. Week 4, they beat the Seahawks. Week 5, they beat the Titans. Week 6, they beat the Colts, or lose to the Colts. Week 7, they lose to the Packers. Week 8 is their bye week, so starting off the season with 3-3 record. Week 9, they beat the Cowboys. Week 10, they lose to the Seahawks. Week 11, they beat the Cardinals. They beat the 49ers week 11. Week 12, they beat the Jaguars. Week 13, they lose to the Buccaneers. Week 14, they beat the Rams. Week 15, they lose to the Texans. Week 16, they lose to the Falcons. Week 17, they lose to the Bengals. And week 18, they lose to the Rams. So my high for them would be 10-7 with the following changes. Week 6, they beat the Colts instead. Week 16, they beat the Falcons instead, making their high 10-7. My low for them would be 6-11 with the following changes. Week 4, the Seahawks beat the Cardinals instead. Week 9, the Cowboys beat the Cardinals instead, making their low 6-11. Next up is the Atlanta Falcons. I have them going 9-8. Conference ranking is going to be 9, right above the Cardinals. And let's go week by week. Week 1, they beat the Buccaneers. Week 2, they lose to the Vikings. Week 3, they beat the Panthers. And week 4, they lose to the Commanders. Week 5 is their bye week, so starting the season off with 2-2 record. Week 6, they lose to the Buffalo Bills. Week 7, they lose to the 49ers. Week 8, they beat the Dolphins. Week 9, they beat the Patriots. Week 10, they lose to the Colts. Week 11, they beat the Panthers. Week 12, they beat the Saints. Week 13, they beat the Jets. Week 14, they lose to the Seahawks. Week 15, they lose to the Buccaneers. Week 16, they beat the Cardinals. Week 17, they lose to the Rams. And week 18, they beat the Saints. So my high for them would be 11-6 with the following changes. Week 2, they beat the Vikings instead. And week 7, they beat the 49ers instead, making their high 11-6. My low for them would be 6-11 with the following changes. Week 3, the Panthers beat the Falcons instead. Week 8, the Dolphins beat the Falcons instead. Well, the upside seems to be frozen, but week 16, the Cardinals beat the Falcons instead. Next up is the Baltimore Ravens, having them going 13-4. Conference rankings to be 3 in the AFC side. Week 1, they lose to the Bills. Week 2, they beat the Browns. Week 3, they lose to the Lions. Week 4, they beat the Chiefs. Week 5, they beat the Texans. And week 6, they beat the Rams before their bye week, starting off the season with a 4-2 record before the bye week. Week 7, of course, is their bye week. Week 8, they beat the Bears. Week 9, they beat the Dolphins. Week 10, they lose to they beat the Vikings. Week 11, they beat the Browns. Week 12, they beat the Jets. Week 13, they beat the Bengals. Week 14, they beat the Steelers. Week 15, they lose to the Bengals. Week 16, they beat the Patriots. Week 17, they beat the Packers. And week 18, they lose to the Steelers. So my low for them would be 13-4, so nothing changes. But my high for them would be 15-2 with the following changes. Week 1, they beat the Bills instead. And week 3, they beat the Lions instead, making their high 15-2. Next up is the Buffalo Bills. I have them going 14-3. Conference rankings B2, so right above the Ravens. Week 1, they beat the Ravens. Week 2, they beat the Jets. Week 3, they beat the Dolphins. Week 4, they beat the Saints. Week 5, they beat the Patriots. Week 6, they beat the Falcons. Week 7 is their bye week, so starting off the season 6-0. Week 8 is beating the Panthers. Week 9, they lose to the Chiefs. Week 10, they lose to the Dolphins. Week 11, they lose to the Buccaneers, so a 3 losing streak and then right back on their feet. Week 12, they beat the Texans. Week 13, they beat the Steelers. Week 14, they beat the Bengals. Week 15, they beat the Patriots. Week 16, they beat the Browns. Week 17, they beat the Eagles. Week 18, they beat the Jets. So my high for them is 14-3, so nothing changes. But my low for them would be 12-5 with the following changes. Week 1, they lose to the Ravens instead. And week 17, they lose to the Eagles instead, making their low 12-5. Next up is the Carolina Panthers. I have them going to 15. Conference ranking to be 15, so at least not the last one. Week 1, they lose to the Jaguars. Week 2, they lose to the Cardinals. Week 3, they lose to the Falcons. Week 3, they lose to the Patriots. Week 5, they lose to the Dolphins. Week 6, they lose to the Cowboys. Week 7, they lose to the Jets. Week 8, they lose to the to the Bills. Week 9, they lose to the Packers. Week 10, they beat the Saints. Week 11, they lose to the Falcons. Week 12, they lose to the 49ers. And week 13, they lose to the Rams. And week 14 is their bye week. So halfway through the season, they are 1-12. Week 15, they lose to the Saints. Week 16, they beat the Buccaneers. Week 17, they lose to the Seahawks. And week 18, they lose to the Buccaneers. So my how for them be 14-3 with the following changes. Week 1, they beat the Jaguars instead. And week 3, they beat the Falcons instead, making their high 14-3. My low for them be 1-16 with the following changes. Week 16, the Buccaneers beat the Panthers instead, making their high 1-16. Next up is the Chicago Bears. I have them going 3-14. Their conference ranking is going to be 14. Week 1, I have them going to beat the Vikings. Week 2, they lose to the Lions. Week 3, they lose to the Cowboys. And week 4, they lose to the Raiders right before their bye week. Week 5, of course, their bye week, starting off the season 1-3. Week 6, they lose to the Commanders. Week 7, they beat the Saints. Week 8, they lose to the Ravens. Week 9, they lose to the Bengals. Week 10, they lose to the Giants. Week 11, they lose to the Vikings. Week 12, they lose to the Steelers. Week 13, they lose to the Eagles. Week 14, they lose to the Packers. Week 15, they beat the Browns. Week 16, they lose to the Packers. Week 17, they lose to the 49ers. And week 18, they lose to the Lions. So my low for them would be 3-14, so nothing changes. But my high for them would be 6-11 with the following changes. Week 4, they beat the Raiders instead. Week 9, they beat the Bengals instead. And week 10, they beat the Giants instead, making their high 6-11. Next up is the Cincinnati Bengals. I have them going 11-6. Their conference are going to be 6 in the AFC side. Week 1, I have them losing to the Browns. Week 2, I have them beating the Jaguars. Week 3, they beat the Vikings. Week 4, they beat the Broncos. Week 5, they lose to the Lions. Week 6, they beat the Packers. Week 7, they beat the Steelers. Week 8, they beat the Jets. Week 9, they beat the Bears right before the bye week. And week 10, of course, is the bye week. Starting off the season 7-2. Week 11, they lose to the Steelers. Week 12, they beat the Patriots. Week 13, they lose to the Ravens. Week 14, they lose to the Bills. Week 15, they lose to beat the Ravens. Week 16, they lose to the Dolphins. Week 17, they beat the Cardinals. And week 18, they beat the Browns. So my how for them would be 13-4 with the following changes. Week 1, they beat the Browns instead. And week 16, they beat the Dolphins instead, making their high 13-4. My low for them would be 9-8 with the following changes. Week 3, they lose to the Vikings. Week 4, they lose to the Broncos, making their low 9-8. Next up is the Cleveland Browns, having them going 6-11, and their conference rankings be 11. Week 1, they beat the Bengals. Week 2, they lose to the Ravens. Week 3, they lose to the Packers. Week 4, they lose to the Lions. Week 5, they lose to the Vikings. Week 6, they lose to the Steelers. Week 7, they beat the Dolphins. And week 8, they beat the Patriots right before the bye week. Week 9, of course, their bye week starting off the season or mid-season, 3-5. Week 10, they lose to the Jets. Week 11, they lose to the Ravens. Week 12, they beat the Raiders. Week 13, they lose to the 49ers. Week 14, they beat the Titans. Week 15, they lose to the Bears. Week 16, they lose to the Bills. Week 16, they beat the Steelers. And week 18, they lose to the Bengals. So my high for them is 7-10 with the following changes. Week 10, they beat the Jets instead, making their high 7-10. My low for them is 3-14 with the following changes. Week 1, they lose to the Bengals. Week 8, they lose to the Patriots. In week 17, they lose to the Steelers, making their low 3-14. Next up is the Dallas Cowboys, having them going 7-10, conference rank 12. Week 1, having them losing to the Eagles. Week 2, beating the Giants. Week 3, beating the Bears. Week 4, losing to the Packers. Week 5, beating the Jets. Week 6, beating the Panthers. Week 7, beating the Commanders. Week 8, losing to the Broncos. And week 9, losing to the Cardinals before the bye week. So mid-season around 5-4. Week 11, losing to the Raiders. Week 12, losing to the Eagles. Week 13, losing to the Chiefs. Week 14, losing to the Lions. Week 15, losing to the Vikings. Week 16, beating the Chargers. Week 17, losing to the Commanders. And week 18, beating the Giants. So my high for them would be 9-8 with the following changes. Week 8 beating the Broncos instead, and week 9 beating the Cardinals instead, making their high 9-8. My low for them would be 6-11 with the following changes. Week 16 beating the Chargers, losing to the Chargers instead, making their low 6-11. Next up is the different Broncos. I have them going 8-9, conference rank 8. So let's go. So week 1 beating the Titans, week 2 beating the Colts, week 3 losing to the Chargers, week 4 losing to the Bengals, week 5 losing to the Eagles, week 6 beating the Jets, week 7 losing to the Giants, week 8 beating the Cowboys, week 9 losing to the Texans, week 10 beating the Raiders, week 11 beating the Chiefs before the bye week, which week 12 is the bye week, so mid-season having 6-5. Week 13 losing to the Commanders, week 14 losing to the Raiders, week 15 losing to the Packers, week 16 beating the Jaguars, week 17 losing to the Chiefs, and week 18 beating the Chargers. So my high for them be 10-7 with the following changes. Week 4 beating the Bengals instead. Week 7 beating the Giants instead, making their high 10-7. My low for them be 6-11 with the following changes. Week 6 they lose to the Jets instead. Week 8 they lose to the Cowboys instead, making their low 6-11. So next up is the Detroit Lions, having them going 14-3, conference rank 1, so being the NFC leader. Week 1 have them losing to the Packers. Week 2 beating the Bears. Week 3 beating the Ravens. Week 4 beating the Browns. Week 5 beating the Bengals. Week 6 losing to the Chiefs. And Week 7 beating the Buccaneers before the bye week, which at the start of the season they're going to go 5-2. Week 9 beating the Vikings. Week 10 beating the Commanders. Week 11 beating the Eagles. Week 12 beating the Giants. Week 13 beating the Packers. Week 14 beating the Cowboys. Week 15 beating the Rams. Week 16 beating the Steelers. Week 17 losing to the Vikings. And Week 18 beating the Bears. So my high for them is 14-3, so nothing changes, but my low for them is 11-6 with the following changes. Week 1, Ravens beat the Lions instead. Week 7, the Buccaneers beat the Lions instead. And Week 11, the Eagles beat the Lions instead, making the low 11-6. Next up is the Green Bay Packers, having them going 13-4, conference rank 5. Week 1 beat the Lions. Week 2 beat the Commanders. Week 3 beat the Browns. Week 4 beat the Cowboys. And Week 5, of course, their bye week, starting off the season 4-0. After the bye week, they go against their first loss against the Bengals, then right back on their feet against the Cardinals, which they're going to win. Week 8, they're going to beat the Steelers. Week 9 beat the Panthers. Week 10 beat the Eagles. Week 11 beat the Giants. Week 12 beat the Vikings. Week 13 lose to the Lions. Week 14 beat the Bears. Week 15 beat the Broncos. Week 16 beat the Bears. Week 17 lose to the Ravens. And Week 18 lose to the Vikings. So my high for them is 13-4. My low for them is 9-8 with the following changes. Week 2, lose to the Commanders. Week 8, lose to the Steelers. Week 10, lose to the Eagles. And Week 14, lose to the Bears, making their low 9-8. Next up is the Houston Texans, having them going 11-6, conference rank 4. Week 1 beat the Rams. Week 2 beat the Buccaneers. Week 3 lose to the Jaguars. Week 4 beat the Titans. Week 5 lose to the Ravens. And Week 6, of course, their bye week, starting off the season 3-2. Week 7 beat the Seahawks. Week 8 lose to the 49ers. Week 9 beat the Broncos. Week 10 beat the Jaguars. Week 11 beat the Titans. Week 12 lose to the Bills. Week 13 lose to the Colts. Week 14 lose to the Chiefs. Week 15 beat the Cardinals. Week 16 beat the Raiders. Week 17 beat the Chargers. And Week 18 beat the Colts. So my low for them is 11-6, so nothing changes. My high for them is 13-4 with the following changes. Week 8 beat the 49ers instead, and Week 13 beat the Colts instead, making their high 13-4. Next up is the Indianapolis Colts. I have them going 6-11, conference rank 12, so let's go week by week. Week 1 lose to the Dolphins. Week 2 lose to the Broncos. Week 3 lose to the Titans. Week 4 lose to the Rams. Week 5 beat the Raiders. Week 6 beat the Cardinals. Week 7 lose to the Chargers. Week 8 beat the Titans. Week 9 lose to the Steelers. And Week 10 beat the Falcons. Week 11 is of course their bye week. Mid-season starting off with a 4-6 record. Week 12 lose to the Chiefs. Week 13 beat the Texans. Week 14 lose to the Jaguars. Week 15 lose to the Seahawks. Week 16 lose to the 49ers. Week 17 beat the Jaguars. And Week 18 lose to the Texans. So my high for them is 6-11, so nothing changes. But my low for them is 3-14 with fun changes. Week 5 the Raiders beat the Colts instead. Week 6 the Cardinals beat the Colts instead. And Week 13 the Texans beat the Colts instead, making the low 3-14. Next up is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I have them going 7-10, conference rank 10. Week 1 beat the Panthers. Week 2 lose to the Bengals. Week 3 beat the Texans. Week 4 lose to the 49ers. Week 5 lose to the Chiefs. Week 6 lose to the Seahawks. And Week 7 before their bye week beat the Rams. Week 8 of course their bye week, starting off the season 3-4. Week 9 beat the Raiders. Week 10 lose to the Texans. Week 11 lose to the Chargers. Week 12 lose to the Cardinals. Week 13 lose to the Titans. Week 14 beat the Colts. Week 15 beat the Jets. Week 16 lose to the Broncos. Week 17 lose to the Colts. And Week 18 beat the Titans. So 7-10 is my high for them, nothing changes. But my low for them is 3-14 with the following changes. Week 1 lose to the Panthers. Week 7 lose to the Rams. Week 9 lose to the Raiders. And Week 15 lose to the Jets, making the low 3-14. Next up is the Kansas City Chiefs. I have them going 15-2, conference rank 1, so being the AFC conference leader. So Week 1 beat the Chargers. Week 2 beat the Eagles. Week 3 beat the Giants. Week 4 lose to the Ravens. Week 5 beat the Jaguars. Week 6 beat the Lions. Week 7 beat the Raiders. Week 8 beat the Commanders. And Week 9 beat the Bills before the bye week. And of course, Week 10 is their bye week, starting off the mid-season 8-1. Week 11 lose to the Broncos. Week 12 beat the Colts. Week 13 beat the Cowboys. Week 14 beat the Texans. Week 15 beat the Chargers. Week 16 beat the Titans. Week 17 beat the Broncos. And Week 18 beat the Raiders. So my high for them is 15-2, so nothing changes. But my low for them is 13-4 with the following changes. Week 2 lose to the Eagles instead, and Week 18 lose to the Raiders instead, making the low 13-4. Next up is the Las Vegas Raiders. I have them going 5-12, conference rank 14. So Week 1 lose to the Patriots, Week 2 lose to the Chargers, 3 lose to the Commanders, Week 4 beat the Bears, Week 5 lose to the Colts, Week 6 beat the Titans, Week 7 lose to the Chiefs, and of course Week 8 is their bye week, starting off the season 2-5. Week 9, lose to the Jaguars. Week 10, lose to the Broncos. Week 11, beat the Cowboys. Week 12, lose to the Browns. Week 13, lose to the Chargers. Week 14, beat the Broncos. Week 15, lose to the Eagles. Week 16, lose to the Texans. Week 17, lose to the Giants, or beat the Giants, my bad. And Week 18, lose to the Chiefs. So my hope for them is 9-8 with following changes. Week 1, beat the Patriots. Week 5, beat the Colts. Week 5, beat the Jaguars. In Week 18, beat the Chiefs, making their high 9-8. My low for them is 3-14 with the following changes. Week 4, lose to the Bears instead. In Week 6, lose to the Giants instead, making their low 3-14. Next up is the Los Angeles Chargers. I have them going 11-6, conference rank 5. Week 1, I have them losing to the Chiefs. Week 2, beating the Raiders. Week 3, beating the Broncos. Week 4, beating the Giants. Week 5, beating the Commanders. Week 6, beating the Dolphins. Week 7, beating the Colts. Week 8, beating the Vikings. Week 9, beating the Titans. Week 10, beating the Steelers. Week 11, beating the Jaguars. And Week 12, of course, the bye week. Going their season so far 10-1. Week 13, beating the Raiders. Week 14, losing to the Eagles. Week 15, losing to the Chiefs. Week 16, losing to the Cowboys. Week 17, losing to the Texans. And Week 18, losing to the Broncos. So my high for them is 12-5 with the following changes. Week 16, beating the Cowboys instead, making their high 12-5. My low for them is 9-8 with the following changes. Week 5, lose to the Commanders instead. And Week 8, lose to the Vikings instead, making their low 9-8. Next up is the Los Angeles Rams. I have them going 9-8, conference rank 8. So Week 1, lose to the Texans. Week 2, beat the Titans. Week 3, lose to the Eagles. Week 4, beat the Colts. Week 5, beat the 49ers. Week 6, lose to the Ravens. Week 7, lose to the Jaguars. Of course, Week 8 is their bye week, starting off the season 3-4. Week 9, beat the Saints. Week 10, lose to the 49ers. Week 11, beat the Seahawks. Week 12, beat the Buccaneers. Week 13, beat the Panthers. Week 14, lose to the Cardinals. Week 15, lose to the Lions. Week 16, lose to the Seahawks. Week 17, beat the Falcons. And Week 18, beat the Cardinals. So my hope for them is 10-7 with the following changes. Week 7, beat the Jaguars instead, making their high 10-7. My low for them is 8-9 with the following changes. Week 12, lose to the Buccaneers instead, making their low 8-9. Next up is the Miami Dolphins, having them going 7-10 in conference ranking 9. Week 1, beat the Colts. Week 2, beat the Patriots. Week 3, lose to the Bills. Week 4, beat the Jets. Week 5, beat the Panthers. Week 6, lose to the Chargers. Week 7, lose to the Browns. Week 8, lose to the Falcons. Week 9, lose to the Ravens. Week 10, beat the Bills. Week 11, lose to the Commanders. And Week 12 is their bye week, having them going 5-6. Week 13, beat the Saints. Week 14, lose to the Jets. Week 15, lose to the Steelers. Week 16, beat the Bengals. Week 17, lose to the Buccaneers. And Week 18, lose to the Patriots. My hope for them is 9-8 with the following changes. Week 8 to beat the Falcons instead. And Week 11 beat the Commanders instead, making their high 9-8. My low for them is 6-11 with the following changes. Week 16 lose to the Bengals instead. Next up is the Minnesota Vikings, having them going 7-10, conference rank 11, just right above the Cowboys. Week 1 lose to the Bears. Week 2 beat the Falcons. Week 3 lose to the Bengals. Week 4 lose to the Steelers. And Week 5 beat the Browns. Week 6 of course their bye week, starting off the season 2-3. Week 7 lose to the Eagles. Week 8 lose to the Chargers. Week 9 lose to the Lions. Week 10 lose to the Ravens. Week 11 beat the Bears. Week 12 lose to the Packers. Week 13 lose to the Seahawks. Week 14 lose to the Commanders. Week 15 beat the Cowboys. Week 16 beat the Giants. Week 17 beat the Lions. And Week 18 beat the Packers. So my hope for them is 9-8 with the following changes. Week 8 beat the Chargers instead. And Week 13 beat the Seahawks instead, making their high 9-8. My low for them is 6-11 with the following changes. Week 2 the Falcons beat the Vikings instead, making the low 6-11. Next up is the New England Patriots. I have them going 6-11, conference rank 13. So Week 1 beat the Raiders. Week 2 lose to the Dolphins. Week 3 lose to the Steelers. Week 4 beat the Panthers. Week 5 lose to the Bills. Week 6 beat the Saints. Week 7 beat the Titans. Week 8 lose to the Browns. Week 9 lose to the Falcons. Week 10 lose to the Buccaneers. Week 11 beat the Jets. Week 12 lose to the Bengals, and Week 13 lose to the Giants, making them go 5-8 before the bye week. Week 15 lose to the Bills, Week 16 lose to the Ravens, Week 17 lose to the Jets, and Week 18 beat the Dolphins. So my hope for them is 8-9 with the following changes. Week 8 beat the Browns instead, and Week 13 beat the Giants instead, making their high 9-8 or 8-9. My low for them is 5-12 with the following changes. Week 1 the Raiders beat the Patriots instead, making their low 5-12. Next up is the New Orleans Saints, having them going 2-15, conference rank 16, so last in place for the NFC. Week 1 lose to the Cardinals. Week 2 lose to the 49ers. Week 3 lose to the Seahawks. Week 4 lose to the Bills. Week 5 lose to the Giants. Week 6 lose to the Patriots. Week 7 lose to the Bears. Week 8 lose to the Buccaneers. Week 9 lose to the Rams. And Week 10 lose to the Panthers. Week 11 of course their bye week, so midway through they're 0-10. Week 12 lose to the Falcons. Week 13 lose to the Dolphins. Week 14 lose to the Buccaneers. Week 15 beat the Panthers. Week 16 beat the Jets. Week 17 lose to the Titans. And Week 18 lose to the Falcons. So my high for them is 4-13 with the following changes. Week 5 the Saints beat the Giants instead. And Week 17 the Saints beat the Titans instead, making their high 4-13. So my low for them is 1-16 with the following changes. Week 16 the Jets beat the Saints instead, making their low 1-16. Next up is the New York Giants. I have them going 5-12, conference rank 13. Week 1 lose to the Commanders. Week 2 lose to the Cowboys. Week 3 lose to the Chiefs. Week 4 lose to the Chargers. Week 5 beat the Saints. Week 6 lose to the Eagles. Week 7 beat the Broncos. Week 8 lose to the Eagles. Week 9 beat the 49ers, or lose to the 49ers, my bad. Week 10 beat the Bears. Week 11 lose to the Packers. Week 12 lose to the Lions. Week 13 beat the Patriots. Week 14 is their bye week, so midway season they're going 4-9. Week 15 beat the Commanders. Week 16 lose to the Vikings. Week 17 lose to the Raiders, and Week 18 lose to the Cowboys. So my high for them is 5-12. So nothing changes. My low for them is 0-17 with the following changes. So literally Week 5 lose to the Saints. Week 7 lose to the Broncos. Week 10 lose to the Bears. Week 13 lose to the Patriots. And Week 15 lose to the Commanders, making the low 0-17. So next up is the New York Jets. I have them going 4-13, conference week 15. Week 1 lose to the Steelers. Week 2 lose to the Bills. Week 3 lose to the Buccaneers. Week 4 lose to the Dolphins. Week 5 lose to the Cowboys. Week 6 lose to the Broncos. Week 7 beat the Panthers. And Week 8 lose to the Bengals. Week 9 is their bye week, so starting off midway point in the season 1-7. Week 10 beat the Browns. Week 11 lose to the Patriots. Week 12 lose to the Ravens. Week 13 lose to the Falcons. Week 14 beat the Dolphins. Week 15 lose to the Jaguars. Week 16 lose to the Saints. Week 17 beat the Patriots. And Week 18 lose to the Bills. So my high for them is 7-10 with the following changes. Week 6 the Jets beat the Broncos instead. Week 15 the Jets beat the Jaguars instead. And Week 16 the Jets beat the Saints instead, making their high 7-10. My low for them is 3-14 with the following changes. Week 10, the Browns beat the Jets instead, making their low 3-14. Next up is the Super Bowl champs, the Philadelphia Eagles. I have them going 12-5, conference rank 3. So week 1 beating the Cowboys. Week 2 losing to the Chiefs. Week 3 beating the Rams. Week 4 beating the Buccaneers. Week 5 beating the Broncos. Week 6 beating the Giants. Week 7 beating the Vikings. Week 8 beating the Giants. And of course, week 9, of course, the bye week. So starting off the season 7-1. Week 10 losing to the Packers. Week 11 losing to the Lions. Week 12 beating the Cowboys. Week 13 beating the Bears. Week 14 beating the Giants, or Chargers, my bad. Week 15 beating the Raiders. Week 16 losing to the Commanders. Week 17 losing to the Bills. And Week 18 beating the Commanders. So my low for them is 12-5, so nothing changes, but my high for them is 16-1 with the following changes. Week 2 the Eagles beat the Chiefs instead. Week 10 the Eagles beat the Packers instead. Week 11 the Eagles beat the Lions instead. And Week 17 the Eagles beat the Bills instead, making their high 16-1. Next up I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. I have them going 10-7, conference rank 7. So week 1 beating the Jets. Week 2 beating the Seahawks. Week 3 beating the Patriots. Week 4 beating the Vikings. And Week 5, of course, the bye week, starting off the season 4-0. Week 6 beating the Browns. Week 7 losing to the Bengals. Week 8 losing to the Packers. Week 9 beating the Colts. Week 10 losing to the Chargers. Week 11 beating the Bengals. Week 12 beating the Bears. Week 13 losing to the Bills. Week 14 losing to the Ravens. Week 15 beating the Dolphins. Week 16 losing to the Lions. Week 17 losing to the Browns. And Week 18 beating the Ravens. So my high for them is 12-5 with the following changes. Week 8 the Steelers beat the Packers instead. Week 17 the Steelers beat the Browns instead, making the high 12-5. My low for them is 9-8 with the following changes. Week 2 the Seahawks beat the Steelers instead, making the low 9-8. Next up is the San Francisco 49ers. I have them going 13-4, conference rank 2. Week 1 lose to the Seahawks. Week 2 beat the Saints. Week 3 beat the Cardinals. Week 4 beat the Jaguars. Week 5 lose to the Rams. Week 6 lose to the Buccaneers. Week 7 beat the Falcons. Week 8 beat the Texans, my bad. Week 9 beat the Giants. Week 10 beat the Rams. Week 11 lose to the Cardinals. Week 12 beat the Panthers. And Week 13 beat the Browns. Week 14, of course, their bye week, so having them season 9-4 at the time. Week 15 beat the Giants. Week 16 beat the Colts. Week 17 beat the Bears. And Week 18 beat the Seahawks. So my high for them is 13-4, so nothing changes, but my low for them is 11-6 with the following changes. Week 7, the Falcons beat the 49ers instead. And Week 8, the Texans beat the 49ers instead, making the low 11-6. Next up is the Seattle Seahawks. I have them going 10-7, conference rank 7. So Week 1, I have them beating the 49ers. Week 2, losing to the Steelers. Week 3, beating the Saints. Week 4, losing to the Cardinals. 5, losing to the Bucks. Week 6, beating the Jaguars. And Week 7 beating or losing to the Texans. Week 8, of course, their bye week, starting off the season 3-4. Week 9 losing to the Commanders. Week 10 beating the Cardinals. Week 11 losing to the Rams. Week 12 beating the Titans. Week 13 beating the Vikings. Week 14 beating the Falcons. Week 15 beating the Colts. Week 16 beating the Rams. Week 17 beating the Panthers. And Week 18 losing to the 49ers. So my high for them is 12-5 with the following changes. Seahawks beat the Steelers instead. Week 4 the Steelers beat the Cardinals instead, making their high 12-5. My low for them is 9-8 with the following changes. Week 13 the Vikings beat the Seahawks instead, making their low 9-8. Next up is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I have them going 11-6, conference rank 4. So week 1 I have them losing to the Falcons. Week 2 losing to the Texans. Week 3 beating the Jets. Week 4 losing to the Eagles. Week 5 beating the Seahawks. Week 6 beating the 49ers. Week 7 losing to the Lions. Week 8 beating the Saints. And week 9 of course their bye week, having them going 4-4. Week 10 beating the Patriots. Week 11 beating the Bills. Week 12 losing to the Rams. Week 13 beating the Cardinals. Week 14 beating the Saints. Week 15 beating the Falcons. Week 16 losing to the Panthers. Week 17 beating the Dolphins. And week 18 beating the Panthers as well. So my low for them is 11-6, so nothing changes. My high for them is 14-3 with the following changes. Week 7 the Buccaneers beat the Lions instead. Week 12 the Buccaneers beat the Rams instead. And week 16 the Buccaneers beat the Panthers instead, having their high 14-3. Next up is the Tennessee Titans, having them going 13-4, or 3-14, my bad, in conference rank 16. So week 1 have them losing to the Broncos, week 2 loses to the Rams, week 3 beating the Colts, week 4 losing to the Texans, week 5 losing to the Cardinals, week 6 losing to the Raiders, week 7 losing to the Patriots, week 8 losing to the Colts, week 9 losing to the Chiefs, and of course week 10 is their bye week, having them going 1-8. Week 11 losing to the Texans, week 12 losing to the Seahawks, week 13 beating the Jaguars, week 14 losing to the Browns, week 15 losing to the 49ers, week 16 losing to the Chiefs, week 17 beating the Saints, and week 18 losing to the Jaguars. So my high for them is 5-12 with the following changes. Week 6 the Titans beat the Raiders instead, and week 8 the Titans beat the Colts instead, making their high 5-12. My low for them is 2-15 with the following changes. Week 17 the Saints beat the Titans instead, making the low 2-15. So last but not least I have the Washington Commanders. I have them going 10-7, conference rank 6. So week 1 I have them beating the Giants, week 2 losing to the Packers, week 3 beating the Raiders, week 4 beating the Falcons, week 5 losing to the Chargers, week 6 beating the Bears, week 7 losing to the Cowboys, week 8 losing to the Chiefs, week 9 beating the Seahawks, week 10 losing to the Lions, week 11 beating the Dolphins, and week 12 is their bye week, having them going 6-5. Week 13 beating the Broncos, week 14 beating the Giants, or Vikings, my bad, week 15 losing to the Giants, week 16 beating the Eagles, week 17 beating the Cowboys, and week 18 losing to the Eagles. So my high for them is 13-4 with the following changes. Week 2 the Commanders beat the Packers instead. Week 5 the Commanders beat the Chargers instead. And week 15 the Commanders beat the Giants instead, making their high 13-4. My low for them is 9-8 with the following changes. Week 11 the Dolphins beat the Commanders instead, making the low 9-8. So that's my prediction for each NFL team. Now I'm going to go on to the playoffs, but before that let's go review who are the division winners and what the ranks are for each team in the conference. So starting off with the NFC side, the NFC North division winner is going to be the Lions, following off with the Packers, Vikings, and Bears. The NFC West, the division winner is going to be the 49ers, following with the Seahawks, Rams, and Cardinals. The NFC East is going to be the division winner is going to be the Eagles, following off with the Commanders, Cowboys, and Giants. And the NFC South, the division winner is going to be the Buccaneers, with then following with Falcons, Panthers, and Saints. On the AFC side, the AFC West, the division winner is going to be the Chiefs, following with the Chargers, Broncos, and Raiders. On the AFC East, the division winner is going to be the Bills, following with the Dolphins, Patriots, and Jets. In the AFC North, the division winner is going to be the Ravens, following with the Bengals, Steelers, and then Browns. In the AFC South, the division winner is going to be the Texans, following with the Jaguars, Colts, and then Titans. And now these are the teams in the playoffs in each conference. In the NFC, first place is the Lions, second place the 49ers, third place is the Eagles, fourth is the Buccaneers, fifth place is the Packers, sixth place is the Commanders, and seventh place is the Seahawks, following with the Rams, Falcons, Cardinals, Vikings, Cowboys, Giants, Bears, Panthers, and then last Saints. In the AFC side, the first place is the Chiefs, second is the Bills, third Ravens, fourth Texans, fifth Chargers, 6th Bengals, 7th Steelers, following with the Broncos, Dolphins, Jaguars, Browns, Colts, Patriots, Raiders, Jets, and then last Titans. So in the playoffs, in the Wildcard Round, in the AFC side, I have the Texans beating the Chargers, Ravens beating the Bengals, and Bills beating the Steelers. On the NFC side, I have the Buccaneers beating the Packers, Eagles beating the Commanders, and 49ers beating the Seahawks. In the divisional round, I have, on the AFC side, the Ravens beating the Bills, Chiefs beating the Texans. On the NFC side, I have the Eagles beating the 49ers, and Lions beating the Buccaneers. In the conference championship round, on the AFC side, I have the Ravens beating the Chiefs, and for the NFC side, I have the Lions beating the Eagles. So in the Super Bowl 60, I have the Lions versus Ravens, hosted in San Francisco 49ers Stadium, Levi Stadium. The team that I have winning in Super Bowl 60 is the Baltimore Ravens. I believe the Lions will go a little bit short of making winning their first Super Bowl. I believe the Ravens will win it, and then Lions may be coming back next season. I can believe that. I can believe that. But I believe the Lions will just fall short. I don't know what the score may be, but I'm thinking it's going to be a very close game. Maybe a touchdown or a field goal away from having the Lions win the Super Bowl, but I have the Ravens winning the Super Bowl. So here's how the draft order will be going. Of course, I don't know all the trades that happened, so all I know is that the Cowboys traded Micah Parsons, with the Packers trading away their first round pick in this draft. So whoever the Packers land on, that's what the Cowboys draft as well. So first pick is going to be the Saints. Second, the Panthers, then Titans, Bears, Jets, Raiders, Giants, Patriots, Colts, Browns, Jaguars, Dolphins, Cowboys, Vikings, Cardinals, Broncos, Falcons, Rams, Seahawks, Commanders, Steelers, Chargers, Bengals, Packers, but that's going to be the Cowboys now, right there. Buccaneers, Texans, 49ers, Bills, Eagles, Chiefs, Lions, Ravens. Thank you guys for tuning in to my prediction. Hope you guys liked it. If you guys disagree or agree on something, comment down below what you guys think, and who do you guys think is going to win this Super Bowl. Comment down below and hear your thoughts. It would be greatly appreciated if you guys want to go ahead and liked, subscribed, and press the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos that I post. Thank you guys again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.